India's independence is often dated to 1947, yet 32 years earlier, a free Indian nation was already operating from the freezing mountains of Afghanistan. On December 1, 1915, during the height of the First World War, the Provisional Government of India was officially established in exile. The leadership structure explicitly crossed religious lines. Raja Mahendra Pratap, a Hindu prince, served as president. Beside him, as prime minister, was a Muslim scholar, Moulana Barkatullah. Barkatullah gave his entire adult life to this shadow government. He remained unmarried to avoid distractions, evaded British intelligence for decades, and accepted permanent exile. Operating a government from Kabul meant that by 1915, Indian revolutionaries were already treating the world stage as their battlefield, coordinating their resistance from outside the reach of British law. Barkatullah's path began in the 1850s in Bhopal. He received a strict Islamic education, deeply rooted in religious scholarship. His political views took shape as he observed British colonial economic policies in action. He saw agricultural resources diverted and millions of Indians subjected to starvation. He responded by mastering 8 languages, including English, Japanese, and German. These languages allowed him to bypass British censors and build relationships with foreign governments. By his late 20s, he had left India entirely to operate from abroad. Violence was not his primary method. Barkatullah used his intellect to document the realities of the British Raj and broadcast them globally. Relocating to London and later New York, he built relationships with Irish revolutionaries and published anti-colonial literature. Moving to Tokyo, he published newspapers like The Islamic Fraternity and El Islam. The British pressured the Japanese government, resulting in the loss of his university professorship. He then traveled to San Francisco to help found the Ghadar Party, an organization explicitly dedicated to instigating an armed mutiny against colonial rule inside India. As a key writer for the party's publications, Barkatullah drafted uncompromising terms for recruits. He wrote, "Salary, death; reward, martyrdom; pension, freedom." His commitment to Hindu-Muslim unity proved highly effective. He helped bind a fractured diaspora into a unified coalition capable of threatening British control. As World War I broke out, Barkatullah saw a strategic opening. He forged alliances with Germany and Turkey to redirect the conflict against British interests. When those empires fell, he shifted tactics. In 1919, he traveled to Moscow as an official ambassador for Afghanistan to establish contact with the newly formed Soviet government. There, he held direct diplomatic meetings with Vladimir Lenin to secure Soviet backing for Indian independence. This diagram outlines spiritual communism. Barkatullah saw a logical overlap between Islamic principles like ethical public funds and socialist economic equity. He argued that despite their differences, the Muslim world and socialist movement faced the exact same enemy, Western capitalist imperialism. By aligning theology with socialist theory, Barkatullah operated as a political philosopher capable of translating faith into an anti-imperial weapon. The conclusion of the First World War destroyed the wartime alliances Barkatullah had built, and the 1915 provisional government eventually collapsed. Despite these severe political defeats and a diagnosis of acute diabetes, Barkatullah maintained his campaign. Throughout the 1920s, he kept up a punishing travel schedule, crossing Europe and the United States to gather remaining revolutionary factions. He expanded his coalition across racial lines, sharing the stage with prominent Pan-Africanists like Marcus Garvey to address joint gatherings of African Americans and Indians. When his primary political missions collapsed, he survived by continually finding new alliances with other marginalized populations. Barkatullah died in September 1927 in San Francisco, thousands of miles from the nation he had spent his life fighting for. He was buried in Sacramento, far from his home in Bhopal. His peers laid him to rest with an explicit condition. His body was to remain there only temporarily, with the firm hope that his remains would be transferred to an independent India. 20 years later, India achieved its freedom, yet that final request remains unfulfilled today. Independence was the result of a dual struggle, the battles fought at home, and the sacrifices of exiles like Barkatullah, who died thousands of miles away so that their country could be free.